My brother once told me if you change, you can I changed every 2 years for my entire life. Yeah. So I was I was really got into
my friend Tony, and I just wanted to hang out with him all the time. Jesus, friend. And I also remember saying I wanted to wrestle with him. And then but I also had the weird foresight to know that he played big long, so I cut it out. Yeah, I literally, I wrote it, and I was like, I should get rid of this, so I cut it out with scissors. And I still have the journal. Sometimes I'll look through it, look at the page where there's clearly a cut mark.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
How old were you?
4th grade.
Oh my god.
11 or something.
Oh, that is so precious. I want to go back in time and just hug you and tell you.
I want to go back and crush my head. All right, let's do another one. Carrie Ryan writes, how did you break away from pursuing a safe career and have faith that a passion could be your job? Give any advice on how to do it?
Yeah.
She says she's going to have her master's degree. Alright, whatever. We'll get to
she has confidential status.
Ryan.
She says by the end of the summer I'll have a master's degree in something I probably won't ever use. I went.
That's okay. I mean, you don't have to put it down or read the whole thing.
Congratulations on your master's.
Let's find that sweet middle ground. That's a great question. Somebody asked me something recently and I really regretted my answer. So I'm going to try and do it better this time. Is that idea that you're you all the time, Carrie, and everybody listening. So nobody knows better than you. So there's nothing that I can really say. Meaning, my experience was I kept getting these little hints that I was on the right path. You'd try stand-up and you would do okay, or you'd ask to be in the newspaper and they would publish you, or they would sell a cartoon. This is shitty college newspaper, nothing big like that. And then everything, you'd go to improv class and you'd be like, I think I'm okay. So it wasn't some big, grand leap, although there was a young, kind of naive moment where I was like, I'm doing comedy, no backup plan. That absolutely happened. But how long would that have lasted if I was like, oh man, I'm really garbage at this? You always have to be on the lookout for those little breadcrumbs down your path. And if it happens, a lot of people, especially I think in America, are like showbiz or bust, entourage or bust. And really, you know, talk about being in that flow. And no one has more intuition for your life than you. No one has more insight for your life than you. We can hear other people giving inspiring stories. But really, you are your greatest teacher. And you need to be honest with yourself. And when you start seeing, like, hey, I think I have a knack for photography, or I'm really good at web animations, or whatever it is, follow that, and have the bravery out there. But then, you know, if you start getting other signals, you know, you can always call an audible. But nobody can explain it. So somebody was like, did you ever have, like, a dark night of the soul where you were like, I gotta get out of comedy? And I was like, no. Does that mean that because you clearly have, and that's my question if you haven't, that I deserve that you are more divinely anointed to do comedy than you? Absolutely not. You are you all the time. I'm just dipping into your awareness to either inspire you or not. But you need to be the one that trusts yourself, trust your gut. Emphasis put on rational intelligence when emotional and intuitive intelligence is kind of like dismissed. Women get it sometimes. They're like, oh, it's female intuition. We all have some level of intuition. And quiet and listen, I think we can find our authentic paths. And when we get hard, he is pointing us one way or the other. Having the bravery to go, well, maybe my brain was wrong, but my heart is telling me to go this way.
It's just gazing at you lovingly that entire time. I really empathize with that situation though, because I understand, like, I'm from that world where it's like, you can't afford to find your dreams. You have to live day to day, and like, you have just enough time.
People saying that. I don't mean you. I mean, it could have been your dad, it could have been a partner. Somebody goes, get real. And you're like, oh, I can have too.
Oh my god, even being an English major, people were always like, what are you gonna do with that? Like, it's everything. That's books, that's writing, that's teaching, that's anything.
Yeah.
So I know that feeling of like whatever she's getting her master's in that she feels like won't be a paying job. I'm sure there are people who are just like, well, good luck with that, philosophy, whatever. And you're like, what about knowledge and just learning? And I guess like it's so hard to make a leap from like, I have to eat, so I have to work, and then I get to work and I'm so exhausted. Like, when am I supposed to pursue whatever my greater passion
You were
is?
just watching American Splendor. If you look at somebody like R.B.D. Garden worked in a filing office, like a real shit job, and never really got enough money to like, that was rough for him, but like, never really broke out. And he was like, now I am a millionaire. All right, well, I happen to know a lot of people. I also know a lot of people who just kind of scrapping together their art. I don't see too much difference. You know what I'm saying? Like, I get it. It's really, really way easier to navel gaze and talk this way if you have the basic that if I'm not but there's something you said about do your duty. This is the Eastern thing. I mean, Hindu thing comes with dharma. It's like, don't do things so that we can later brag about them on the podcast like, oh, I've done it. We do things because those are the things we are doing. And there's something really beautiful in saying, I make art because I am to make art.
Yeah.
When I am quiet and when I am surrendering to this personality, this history, this time period, and all the opportunities that unfold, or whatever it is, I do these things. Those are the things that light me up and make me feel connected and inspired and feel joy.
Yeah.
So I follow those breadcrumbs. But like, it doesn't mean you have to. It's not cribs or bust, right? It's not like either you get the Lambo or you fucked up.
Yeah.
What I'm realizing is it's in the tension, it's in the in-between places where the real art of living rubber meets the road. It's like, instead of postponing your happiness, or when I hear about that, I'll feel good. It's now in the tension. Can we live here? Can we make tables because we make tables? Can we sweep floors because we sweep floors? And can we value, you're a good example of this, writing stuff, and it's not necessarily going anywhere yet. One of the things, if I may, I feel like you picked up, you nurtured each other, is if you feel like working at all, that's as good as it gets. So I've seen you do that. You feel like, I kind of feel like working, and then you go in the other room and you write. Nobody's like, Jezebel asked me to write this or anything. It's just tasting the bread. Is it the right one? I don't know, but you pick it up.
And when you're doing a thing, you're doing a thing. Like, you're already doing it. So when I'm writing, even if nobody sees that, I'm already doing the thing. It's not like I have to wait for it to get published for that to be.
And how much stuff does anyone do that no one will ever see? But,
and what is it? You know, it's you do it because you do it, and if people like it, that's really great. And I won't lie to you, it feels nice. It feels nice to have people enjoy this podcast. You guys got your live shows and stuff. That feels great. But ultimately, we want to, I think, have that purity and that emptiness. I do comedy. My brain lights up when I try to do comedy, and I like the feeling of creating.
It's tough though. I have noticed it. I think there's a double standard. I would say most particularly in entertainment, where if you, like you were saying, if you don't become enormously successful, someone somewhere could deem you a failure. And I don't know. I find it like, I think if you go into physics or to be a scientist and you don't win the Nobel Prize, I don't think people will think of you as a failure.
Yeah.
But I was watching the Oscars a couple years ago or something, and they were in the show, and it was like Meryl Streep. It was someone who was like super popular, and someone at the party I was at was like, ugh, she's the worst. And you're just like, she's the most successful actress. Like, if there's someone somewhere who could still conceivably just dismiss your entire existence.
But they don't believe, and this is something I feel like you have to believe in before you necessarily believe it. You do it as well as you can from where you're at, and then eventually you practice and you get it. I feel like, I imagine, Meryl Streep is a person that does that sort of work because she's doing beauty. It's like, I do this to do this. And if we start looking at other people as mirrors, I know we're in show business, so of course we do that. And we literally get them in front of audiences that are mirrors. But there, at a certain point, you have to, no one is going to save you. It's you. You are the teacher, and you are the experiencer, and you are the eyes of the universe experiencing itself. So you go on stage because you are compelled to go on stage. People like it, it's great. And believe me, that's where the food to mouth comes in. And I understand that. But I think a lot of these people that we're drawn to in cobble shoes in between movies, you get the sense that this guy's just doing what's in his DNA.
Yeah.
And we're drawn to that. We're drawn to people who come alive and are doing what they ought to be doing. So I don't know why I said that.
Brent, that was beautiful. Did you always know that you wanted to be a comedian? I remember we talked about this.
I think so. I think like the last time I thought it might be fun to be a therapist.
Oh,
and then,
we did that.
Thank you.
You're such a good listener.
Well, it's never too late.
Yeah. Go into that. What if I just started really encouraging him? Oh yeah, you should do that. You know what I know about this program? You're an intern.
Take that out. Thank you. I think as of like late high school, I just want to stand up.
Well, you're so good and our lives are better.
Well, I know. I think it's one of the things where, like, regardless of whether you've had a great year, a great month, or a great week, or whatever, like, I think I'm going to die every day. And so every time I get on the plane, I'm like, this is it. And I think a lot of people feel that way. So if you can feel like the last maybe 4 or 5 years, I've felt like at ease when I get on planes. I'm like, well, that's what I wanted to do, and I guess that's fine for now. And then, of course, it lands.
I kind of feel like, I think this is a big thing, though. It's a big and then one, right? So you do, who is the most, Meryl Streep is one of the examples. It's like, and then what? Ramdas tells the story where it's like, let's say a meteorite is coming towards the Earth, and you know you have 30 minutes to live. And it's kind of funny about it. He's like, what are you going to do? It's going to get there real fast. And you're going to smoke a joint real fast. And he's kind of pointing out that a bigger idea is coming. And we do think that if we amass accolades and respect, and enough people love you and think you're a genius, and you have the right car, and you have the right house, and the right wife, and the right leisure time, and all that stuff. That's certainly keep calling. I think it's important. I'm back, and we're talking about the meeting, right?
Yeah, and you were talking about Ram Dass, and I told a friend that I forgot to propose that we do this drinking game where we drink every time you mention
Oh, you will die. You will die. Firstly, sorry for taking the call. My phone's always on Do Not Disturb, but if somebody calls multiple times, I just want to report. But it's okay. I'm going to back. And anyway, Meteor. So I'm not an expert at this stuff, but it's that idea that what is the, like David Bowie does. And you're like, oh shit, I agree. And then some people are like, yeah, but he did so much. Kind of like, what are we talking about? Like, is there an amount of toys that you can stack up that prevents you from dying? Is there an amount of respect you can stack up that prevents you from dying? So what Ramdas is saying, Meteor is coming towards the Earth. What are you going to do? Smoke a joint? Pleasure. Chase pleasure. Minimize pain and all that sort of stuff. Or are you doing what you do because the meteor is coming? But there's the pleasure of landing into your purpose and discovering your purpose. And as you've done that wonderful great thing, humbly and proudly returning what you've been given. You've been given this great gift. You stand up and writing, performing, you are returning. And I remember I was teaching in Denver, and he was like, what if you knew the world was going to end? We were about to go in and do a show. And if we knew we only had like 8 hours, I was like, I would go in and do the show. Yep. That's Dharma. Sorry to pat myself on the back again, but that's the feeling of we're doing what we would do. And it doesn't have to be show business. It's just I'm a mother, I'm a father, I'm a brother, I'm a friend. Yeah. I'm a sculptor. I write quietly in the office while Pete's talking to himself playing Red Dead. We're doing what we do. I was
going to say, I feel like I remember learning this once, and I might be very wrong. In like cognitive psychology, they say that you can be motivated by like 3 different like kind of fundamental. You could either be intimacy motivated, power motivated, and I forget the third. But like, what would you say like when you do stand up and when you're like putting yourself out? What are you looking for? Are you looking for power? Are you looking for money? Are you looking for? Do you want people to say hi? Do you want pussy? Like, what are you looking for?
Hello, Mr. Therapist. Cognitive theory.
It's interesting. I find it very helpful to split yourself into multiple, not personalities, but different dimensions. Yeah. And when I just talked about this on Duncan's podcast, I look at my ego as Daniel Playfield, Daniel Day-Lewis, and I call it the Playfield. Every once in a while, I just stand up and I feel like coming through my veins, and I want to talk to everybody. And I'm honest with Val about this. It's about like kind of feeling virile. You want to fuck everybody. Yeah. It's not like I want to cheat on Val. I know I've said many times that I don't feel like fucking everybody. That's true. But sometimes the right cocktail happens of performance and experience, and you're just like, I am a conqueror. I want to fuck everybody. Yeah. It's amazing. So that's playing field. You know what I'm saying? So I am not here to deny the human experience of it's gross to talk about wanting power, it's gross to talk about wanting money, it's gross to talk. What I boil those things down to is access, though. Is access to certain people and experiences. That's a big thing that I want. Remember we talked about that? Affirmation, access, and ascension for my 3. Yeah. So I want to evolve, which is ascension. I want access to interesting people, mostly. Because when you swing, party, not for us. But when I get to be friends with Rob Bell because I have a certain type of life that is activated to those types of people, that is more important. And then affirmation. Adoration. I do like people saying, I'm not sure, but I do like new fun. I get new standing ovations, feels, and that's kind of important. And that, maybe he likes to nibble on that, but my awareness is just kind of observing. Yeah. What's your
I think I used to think of power, but I think it's intimacy now. I do like the idea of having as many like nice, vaguely flirtatious conversations that I can have before I die.
That is great.
The idea of like doing a show and talking, but the thing is, it's like I punish myself because I don't always hang out around the audience. I don't always make myself accessible in that sense. So it's almost like I'm looking for someone who really like find me on Twitter, or something. Just almost like I punish myself.
Well, it's intimacy, but that's also tension. That's going back to the tension. Tension. Yeah. Where like you were just mentioning the tension and what you're doing, like what you're working on. When did you mention tension? Yeah, just now. You just mentioned tension, but it's also true with like interactions, where like it's really juicy when you have kind of the flirtatious tension.
Yeah, right.
Like a
driver.
I'm excited for our next ride. You don't know what it's going to be like.
And also the next audience, that's a nice find kind of interest. Yeah. It's not necessarily sexual, but there's something about like what's that going to be like, right? When those two things kind of blend together, right? It's fun to get that feeling too. But yeah, I realize the more money and the more power, quote unquote, that I'm exposed to, that doesn't necessarily. It really does come down to it. It really does come. I'm not just saying this because I've had half a glass of wine. It does come down to friends that you can have come over and gab on your couch. It does come down to having a true girlfriend that you sit on the porch, dog, and all that sort of stuff. That's where the juice is. It also. Plain pizza wine can tell you about that. It's also good to crush your enemies.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense that your ego is playing you. What? Did you guess what my ego is? My ego is?
Oh.
Get it. You'll get it.
Am I going to get the outlet?
Yeah. 100%.
Right.
Well, that's why we like that stuff. We have these feelings. And at Dunkin' Coffee, it's okay to love this potentially dark side of yourself. You don't let it take over. You don't let it steer the car, but it can sit shotgun. It's looking out for you.
Yeah.
It knows because you teach it through reinforcement that when you are successful, you get money and money. It's sex and love. It's all this kind of like what I would think is kind of like a sympathetic love, almost like a methadone love. But you're still kind of learning that that's good. So you do that for 18 years while you're developing your personality. You're going to have a Beyonce riding shotgun going like,
I say that to them all. I got it there. I'm feeling drunk as hell.
I'm actually curious about this one. Erin Murray, she asks, if this were to get to have a show, what would you most like to talk to? Now,
those are, podcasts is what they're
I know, I'm like in such like middle range, vaguely shitty lockdowns.
Every time I think like I
really want to go
never
to
want to go there, you always are like, I would love to. The truth is, I would love to go there with you because you could find what the goal is about.
Yeah.
I've actually heard that I don't know it.
Is gold a secret closeted game?
You find the closeted Asian game.
Again, honest stress. No fetish.
No
No
fetish.
fetish.
Slight references happen.
Vague, slight references.
I really would like to have some of those really almost manic, clean living geniuses on the show. Someone like Steve Harvey, I think, would be very interesting. I don't know if his name's still
Read the 530 News blog. It's elections really well.
Oh, really?
His statistician, like a pop culture stuff.
Oh, I'm talking about like almost like I know this is strange, but one time we talked about Kanye West at the comic book store, and I kind of regret not asking him to just come on the podcast, just because to talk about a baby or a fiance, to talk to somebody who spends so much of their time, and I know it can be obnoxious, but I think it would be interesting to sit down with him and just like put it all, just talk to somebody who's all cock. And what does God mean to someone who's all cock?
Yeah.
Also, Gosling obviously would be a big thing. But you know why Gosling over, say, like Brad Pitt or something? I'm concerned that someone like Brad Pitt is such a corporation that would feel like it is with McDonald's. You have an answer to those things. Whereas Brad, if I'm wrong, consider the gauntlet going down. I'd love to have you on it. Anything. But I'm concerned that once you get to a certain level, your responsive, if they're not popular or strange, cost a lot of working people their jobs. Because you need a lot of people. Gosling doesn't seem to give a fuck. There's his daddy Goss, and he'll come in, and he will open up, and I mean, share a cup. So.
And then he'll join our relationship.
Yeah.
Move in immediately.
That's playing with fire. But who else would be great?
To join our relationship. PG.
I don't know. Maybe we should.
Well, Ram Dass, but like,
If we could time travel, actually, that's the 70s.
I'm taking that as a mission, so I'm doing
I'm trying to think. I think those are pretty great decisions. And really, too, talking about breadcrumbs and stuff, I try and live, and this sounds so up my ass. I guess when I drink a little bit, I get this way. But instead, just kind of like you run into these people and you ask them to do it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it goes. So I'm not going to sit around with all this.
What about Eminem?
I really would like Eminem.
Yeah.
Because, thank you, Eminem. Sure is. Eminem to me is fascinating because he's not just Dick. He is all of the. He talk about a person that split himself into multiple things, categories, as he had. And I think that is. I think his most recent album is very mature, and it has a lot of this like, what am I doing? Who am I doing this for? Am I helping anybody? Like I'm getting older. Like is this my legacy that I stirred up? He's getting devices and stuff. And also know that he's just kind of bring out demons and responding. Kind of like the way that I used to listen to Rams, like there's probably a lot of people with demons that like him listening and rapping about his mother because they also have this like unspoken shadow aggression towards their mother. So I would love to talk to him. Eminem might be very interesting. I think I told you one time I got to watch the while, and embarrassingly emailed my legends. That was embarrassing.
That's not that embarrassing. I mean, your agents represent like people.
No, I know, but it's just kind of like when you do the podcast, I feel like sometimes I worry that something like this, if you don't see it as a work of art in itself, a good conversation, a real connection of two people, then I can't really offer you anything. Like we were at that Gold Rose party, see that because I've told stories about seeing Matt Damon at this party. He's always there. You don't ask Matt Damon. He's helping you at that point. It's better when it's kind of like, if he were a fan and always wanted to have this type of conversation, that's one thing. But if I'm just like, you do it, really I'm saying, please help me. I'll be on the cover of HuffPo. And nobody wants to do something for that.
Brent, who would be your dream guest? Brent also has a podcast called Completely Obsessed, which I'm completely obsessed with.
It's great. What would be a good app to start with?
Let's see. I talk about anything that I'm obsessed with. So I talk about plane crashes. I talk about Christmas.
I don't like how much you do.
We're talking about breakfast cereal.
We're getting on a plane with you.
You actually mentioned Pete on the plane crash one, which I love, and we're all getting on a plane.
We are. But the odds are against it. Like I said, I could talk about my two favorite plane crashes.
I don't want to talk about
I love it.
I'm sweating now. I don't want to think about that. And there are people on planes listening to this right now. It's like an awful prank.
There are parts like I'm so fearful in some ways, and I just
Is this about
not. And I'm just not about plane crashes. Like I just don't think it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Ghosts for sure.
Yeah. 100%.
The plane crashes. I mean, what's that up?
Ghosts are fun. When have you heard a story where it's like, I saw a ghost and it cut my throat? It's never happened. I saw a ghost and it wanted me out. The worst you'll get is the bite marks or spread. I know, but to me, okay, I guess I'm not afraid of that because I'm like, all right.
Yeah, fine.
Well,
bite me.
So Pete
Literally bite me.
I went from the kitchen to the living room. I heard enough of this video that Pete was watching on his phone about demons that like took over this house.
That's a good one.
And all I heard were years later they found things from the various owners of the house collected, and I was like, nope.
Yeah, but wait.
No way.
Well, you didn't even hear. Sorry about that.
Okay, go ahead, but I won't be able to sleep, and you're the one that has to.
All right, I won't tell you. Why don't you not listen for 1 second?
Okay, I won't.
Everyone's going to want to know.
Yeah, tell.
Okay, take your pencil off.
They cut open the wall and found things that belonged to everybody who had ever lived in the house, including the current occupants of the house. In the wall.
Yeah.
All right, you're back.
I literally did that while you were watching the video. I went on the plane.
I didn't know you were that sensitive to do it.
I can't.
You kept saying, like, how is it that you believe in this stuff and you're not terrified? And then remember I was like, they always invite it. There's always something in there where it's like, I knew I shouldn't have cut that chicken's head off with the Ouija board. Yeah, stop fucking around with the occult.
I know, but see, here's the thing. I still have, and I blame fundamentalist, legalist, Christian behavior.
Yep.
Because I'm not an OCD person at all. But then I'll get really OCD about that kind of thing. So every night now, because this is a perfect piggyback off of my fear of after we watched Making a Murderer, which we should definitely talk about.
Yes.
But so I've been already kind of afraid at night, and then at night, since you told me that, just like I'm like a third grader again, I'm like, don't invite the demons in.
Oh, I know.
Do not invite them in.
I told you I had that nightmare where they were like, you're inviting the demon. I was like, I'm not immune.
It really like clicks into this like ways that we were raised, where it's like thought crime almost. Like you can't.
Did your parents believe in ghosts?
That's a really good question.
Did your parents believe in ghosts?
My parents didn't believe in ghosts. They believed very much in demons.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: they were pretty good about it. But what's scary to an adult, or what's not scary to an adult, isn't necessarily not scary to a kid. So my dad actually told me once, when I was like too scared of demons to fall asleep.
To go to a demon
concert. Yeah. He was like, I walked around the perimeter of this house and prayed that there would be angels with every step that I take. So the demons cannot get in here. They can press their noses up against the window, but they cannot get in. So then that's the image that I had.
These angels that have to go like, God, 58 angels. He took 58 slow southern steps around this house. I only got 55. Now I got a demon pressing his face on the window. Jesus Christ. You guys talking about me? Sorry, Lord.
It's just like, I think it's just being introduced. It's just being introduced to like light versus dark in a very like fragile way at a really fragile age.
Yeah. This is where you get into a bit of child abuse. I'm not going to tell my children about demons and shit.
I know.
Get the fuck out of my face. If they tell me about them, I'll believe. I saw Satan!
There is a part of me that's afraid of having kids because I feel like kids are connected to a certain realm. And they're going to be like
they would scare you.
They'll be like the woman in the window, and then I won't ever be able to.
I remember having a very vivid.
How did we get here? The plane crashes.
It just goes.
I had a very vivid imaginary friend. Like when you were a kid. Yeah.
Really?
Shaka.
Shaka?
Yep.
That's so close to chakra.
And
It also sounds not made up. Like he was like.
And I just remember, like, he was, like, a guy that would follow me around, and, like, and I remember once, like, my,
Scary!
I was going outside, and I felt like I was, like, behind, or, like, I should have gone out a while ago, and playing, like, video games or something, and my mom was like, what's wrong? And I'm like, the guy in my head told me to go outside earlier, and I should have gone.
Oh my god, that's the kind of scary shit that I can't deal with.
And I remember she was like,
all right, we're changing the subject. New question. So, Joe, you guys made it all goodbye. Trying to have a celebratory 300. You guys want to bring up any other demons?
All right, so Joe Williams wants to know, was there any guest no names that you felt really excited about before the episode, but for whatever reason it didn't click? I guess you can't say that, Katie. Thank you.
That's a good question, though, but yeah.
It is a good question, and there is an answer. There are answers, but I'll say this for anybody that's interested in podcasting. I'll always come home and I'll say to Val, it's usually ones that I hope for. So you're right, Joey Wells, you're right. So you go in with some sort of idea, map of how it's probably going to go. And if a podcast doesn't end with the person and I absolutely wanting to be best friends, whether or not we will be, just wanting to, like, finding that kind of intimate connection, then it's kind of like, doesn't feel like a complete success. Not that I'm just like an sociopath trying to win over people that or whatever, but I'd like to find what I like about them, and I'd like to see what they like about me. Oftentimes, when we fall short would be that we didn't really talk about each other.
Or I heard you use more than merge into one person.
Yeah, we didn't merge into one person. So there's ones where we just feel like we didn't do. And if I ever feel like I'm getting to stop cancer, or if I feel like I was like, just another show they did, does that make sense? Instead of them kind of, I want them to think of it as a special opportunity. Then I'll go home, and this is why I turn 7, I'll be like, oh, we didn't merge into one person. So that breaks my. what happens is no one notices. And I really think that's important, is no one ever goes like, well, I didn't hear you guys really clicking. And then, I'll give you another example. I remember, it wasn't a bad thing, but with David Tell, I remember I was like, we were in the cellar, he was smoking, I was uncomfortable, there were people walking in, and sorry, this is a name check, but I told Judd, I was like, I feel kind of weird, is it okay? He listened to it and was like, I loved it. Like, and, you know, he would tell me if it was weird. So, like, the good news is, and this is something Conan told me when he was doing his talk show, was he was like, a daily show, sometimes they think they're reinventing the form, no one notices. Sometimes they feel like they're really shitting their hat and they ain't it, no one notices. This goes back to the, like, just do it because it's what you do.
I learned, I used to major in art, and was so caught up in, like, having the best show you can. I think Santa is great for so much a lot of the time. I was in this show, you know, like, he likes to do this, and then I started to realize no one, unless you absolutely should, no one knows. That's right. The biggest part is you can't do it. If you didn't have the best.
I'll also,
go ahead.
real fast, never, that's something, one of the best pieces of stand-up advice I can give, is unless you were like heckled and booed and thrown off the stage, you don't have to say sorry to the club because they didn't know this either.
No.
You think it was horse shit? They've been there on a Thursday before. They know what it's like when they had to pay for the room or the radio contest. They're just glad that you went up and talked for half an hour while they sold overpriced drinks. So don't get off stage and say, I'm sorry. I had the impulse to say I'm sorry, and then had the club owner be like, oh, this is so much bigger. Because they were checking in every 17th minute.
Yeah. I think I can offer something as a non-stand-up. Like, it took me months of living with you even and going to shows with you before I could figure out if you thought a show was bad or not. So
That's
just
right.
as like an outsider, you're just like, yeah, this is great. He's being funny. People are laughing.
People are laughing.
Yeah, you say something, people laugh. It's as simple as it is. But now, obviously, I can tell just because you have such a fine tune. And
Well, I want the audience and I to merge into one thing.
Yeah.
And it's the same exact standard that I have for the podcast, where if I feel like they're listening to a joke or responding, and then treating the next joke as a fresh new start, I'm like, I'm not here to dance for you. I'm here to I want it to all become a show. That's what it is. How was the show? You mean when Brent stood in front of Tony, Julie, Meredith, Sam? You know what I mean? They became an audience. You became a performer. Everything got blurred into what we call a show. That is magic. That's your goddamn dragon.
There's your dragon.
There's your goddamn dragon. I haven't eaten anything today.
I know, things are getting lose on You're not speaking a Daniel Playroom.
They'll start coming out more and more as we go. I want this.
This podcast ends with me being drunk at the No.
So let's do a question from Colin Sweets.
Oh, sweet.
This is Pete. Has your famous voice lab ever gotten you into trouble? Now, has it
First of all, thank you, Sweets, for directing a question to me. That is so sweet of you.
Very Colin Sweets of you. Can you think of a time when it happens frequently? I'll get shushed or a look or something.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty normal at a restaurant for me to just say, I'll laugh, and I'll see a bunch of startled old women, and I'll go, sorry, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I love your laugh. It's one of the first things that I love about you. So I always have like a very special fondness for it. The most recent time, I wasn't embarrassed, but the most recent time was when we were at UCB and you were like just kept talking and laughing like we were out.
Oh, in the green room.
And I see it like I'll empathize with anybody.
You got shushed like 4 times.
So there was this one girl who kept, whose job it was to keep it quiet, who kept being like, coming in and like, I'm so sorry. So then all of a sudden I'm instantly attached to her, and I don't want her to feel bad about telling me to shush. So then I don't want to shush her either.
I remember that moment, and looking back, I probably just got on stage, so we're having like fun. You think you're in a green room that's quiet, but maybe you're right next to the stage. And then, you know, your feeling is, all these people are having fun. When I have fun, it's louder. It's just naturally louder. feel like that's sort of like, why can't I have cake?
Yeah.
Because when you eat cake, you make a lot of noise when everyone else is having cake. So, I understand why the producers. I do apologize to producers.
I also think it's like, that's a thing, maybe it's you, I'm going to be embarrassed if it's either one of you, about like stopping somebody from laughing. It's TJ. The sound that you make when you have joy is offensive to me. I think that is so funny. So like, why shushing somebody when they're laughing, especially?
I have a lot of loud laughers that come up to me and they say, this just happened at the White Club, and I think it's Jeremy. And he came up and was just like, I'm also a loud laugher. It's not, it's like a group, like we like finding other ones. And you can kind of realize you're a loud laugher, like, oh, I think I'm laughing in a way that I think is acceptable. When a real laugh sounds like this.
Yeah. I'm actually sort of quiet, and I can trace it to the fact I had an older brother growing up, and whenever I would be too loud or if I would woke him up, I would miss. And so now, I can be alone in my apartment, and I'll shush someone if I think they're being. I'm like, oh,
I it's pointed out helped me see another reason why I am the book, which is a big part of this podcast. Paradoxes, contradictions. As Val knows, I'm very, 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 very sensitive to sound. So if I go to the movies, I'm getting better at it. It's something I'm working on. I haven't just surrendered to the idea that I don't like people talking, but I don't like people talking in movies. Yeah. And I don't like people. The worst thing that can happen actually is the person you're with wants to talk.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, we have a couple friends where I'm like, I want to tell them before the movie set, please don't talk, but I can't do that. They're going to dear friend.
Yeah.
And then, laughing I'm fine with, but movies and stuff, and then like any noise that I hear when we're in the apartment, not sure on the walls, was my favorite thing that
I've wondered before, I feel like I'm Aspergian just for like dog barking.
Oh yeah, I remember.
Fly off the handle.
Russell has a dog that barks. He said the perfect wrong thing. And it's not just a bark, it's like a I can't even do that.
I have a neighbor dog that it looks like a rat. I'm convinced it's a rat, and it barks like this. I finally had to write a note.
Yeah.
And I spent like a couple days crafting it out, and they actually were really respectful and understanding.
Leave your neighbor number to me?
Oh yeah.
Also,
I got a couple neighbors.
Are we going to get that note? Because every time you come in, we just scan a little note slipped under our door that's like, I won't come over until you get rid of that dog.
I had to write a note. I was such a fucking... Like, I was a 40-year-old woman living in Cambridge when I was 22. Yeah. I understand, like, just kind of like a... Yeah. How else to explain it? So, we had the neighbor next door when I was 23. No, probably 25. Yeah. He always looked like that. Really bad. Rhythmless solo blues music. So it'd just be like... Horrible. Unreal. So the quietest, most beautiful street in Brownstown is Carroll Street in Park Slope, and I loved it. And it was home. I was young. This is before I really understood white noise machines and earphones. So it was kind of like dealing with it. Yeah. So I took it. I made a note. This is so embarrassing. On the note, I drew a pair of earphones. That is obnoxious. The subject is earphones. And then it said, to our musical neighbor. That is a 40-year-old woman living to our musical neighbor. Like wearing earphones or something like that. But honestly, 25-year-old Pete, here's 36-year-old Pete saying, yeah, the fuck are you blaring it through an amp? You fucking shit. Yep. My notes suck too. Everyone in the story sucks.
I think that...
But did it work? Did the music? No.
Musical neighbor. I went back and I listened for it.
I wish you had said, please consider adding some R to your AMV.
Right now you're just Dan B.
Right now you're just Dan B. There's no rhythm.
You know what's funny? There was part of it that was that. You and I were watching this movie too much ago, but I took you on tonight.
That happened 2 days ago.
And we passed that house that was playing that But live,
I don't remember this. That's how much hope.
it gave me joy. Like, there's something to if you're a good musician, you find that.
Yeah.
Who doesn't want to listen to good music?
But you know, I think there's something going on where you hear him practicing, and on a subconscious level, you're like, he's doing something, and I'm not doing it. Especially I've come to peace with how he can appear to me very little. Show you their guns. But like, you hear this guy practicing. I think there was something going on. He was tenacious. I mean, if he was on a good baseball, I'd be like, what is this?
Hearing somebody practice instrument is a special kind of excruciating. Which is why I think I gave up the violin, because I lived with roommates. And I was listening to violin.
It wasn't lack of talent, it was courtesy.
It's courtesy. I'm just a good roommate, not a lazy violin learner.
Little jokes will whisper.
Which is really rare because I often smoke weed before I go to a movie, which means that I have so many questions during the movie, and I actively have to like not ask them.
Yeah.
I just say like, I think you'll find out.
My answer often though is we're not supposed to know. Like you'll go, what's in the bag?
I know. It's like we're watching the same movie. Why would my friend know more than I do?
That's right.
But
they always do. I'm like, what's going on? It's like he knows the same thing you do.
He's trying to withhold. It's like a bag. It's withholding something.
That's sometimes true, and then also he is okay with not knowing something that I'm not okay with.
Yeah.
And I think you'll relate to this because it's political. Whenever we watch House of Cards, it's so important. Just whenever I watch anything, it's so important for me to understand 100%.
Yeah.
And like House of Cards, I don't understand anything. And I'm always asking, he's like, I don't even really know. All I know is this guy wants to get that.
I know I'll get the same feeling when he corners it and it's like, get out of the house.
Yeah, you're right.
No, because I think it has a lot to do with music. It's like I don't like to remind you how dumb I am, and that's why I never do trivia nights because I don't want to like sit down and pay money before we play a game where you're like, I'm really smart, I'm gonna do great, and then like I get nothing. It's just it's like
Can I mention what I am? It's your birthday. How many? Shit. It's gonna say for your 30th. Like your birthday. Yeah. Your birthday. I guess we somehow find out tell me if you would love this. Not the topic of your expertise. You just get it. Always be shit.
Email your agents right now and see if they represent
See, I just jumped to like I like those categories. I'm all nerdy, pragmatics.
Yeah,
and all those
good to know.
And then like, what if I still get like the $2,000 question? You know, like what if I still fuck it up? You know?
Let's think of what the categories will be. So, what was the fourth change?
Yeah.
Pragmatics.
Why your certain Bernie Sanders cannot believe it.
Even though he absolutely will. Feel the burn.
Red Bull, Diet Red Bull.
Diarrhea. And
Diarrhea.
Dying in a day.
Dare I say, beat Minecraft? Dare
Ah, yeah. I won't be there, but next question.
So Christopher Brown writes, now a great one. Possible to befriend the next follow-up. It's possible to become his friends and just see them as
I love that this has become like savage.
Love cat. You know, I am a huge black and whiter. I've always distrusted people that were friends with their exes and stuff. I'm like, you still like them. Why aren't you with them? Like, it doesn't make any sense to just downgrade it. I never understood going to the premium plan to the let's just do it together and just make friends. But that being said, I think there's something nice about a clean break. You break up with somebody and you're done. Yeah. Now, I'm going to say how many girlfriends I've had. I think like 5 out of 5. 4 out of those 5, absolutely no contact. That's how I like it. One of them, Jamie Lee, what a wonderful dearest. Lovely as wonderful. She's done another kind of like I don't want to belittle the term spirit mate, but she's got that sort of like soul quality.
To us both. And to you. You're friends with her. She's an undeniably wonderful person.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is possible. But if I still have feelings for Jamie Lee, I don't know. I don't fuck around. I wouldn't hang out with her. I would be like, we need to remove the ice cream from the freezer because I'm getting fat. Like, we need to like break this off. It's helpful to me to move on, to not try and have some sort of watered down thing. So you really have to ask yourself the question: what is the fantasy? Why do you want it? Is it so that one day they'll go like, I was wrong, you really are the greatest person? Do you really need another friend? Not to sound like Seinfeld here, but like, who needs friends? They're not.
I see that, by the way, on Grindr all the time. People have pictures of just their body.
Yeah.
And their profile will say, just looking for friends.
Yeah. Come be
Or
friends.
gym buddies, which I still don't know what
Am I going to wash my laundry?
You work out and then I feel like I know what gym buddies is.
Yeah.
How do I know?
Never seen gym
Is it
buddies.
GYM or JM?
GYM.
Two gyms.
But yeah,
It's a gym in search of another gym.
I have the same feeling where it's like, I have lots of friends. I don't know if I need necessarily
I don't
friends
need
that I have
one that I'm in love with.
forever. Yeah.
I guess, what's his name? Jake?
Oh no, that was
That doesn't matter. Yeah, sorry. But I do think there's something powerful to, I think the universe or nature does admire courage. That's something Terence McKenna said the mushroom told him when he was tripping. That when you have courage and when you act courageously, nature or the universe responds by removing obstacles. And I really think there's something powerful, even if it is just psychological, nothing mythical about it. Saying, all right, I'm in love with Julie. Julie doesn't want to date me. I am going to get my things, my inner things together, and I'm going to pick up and move on. And I think that's a courageous act. And I think that opens you up subconsciously to the next person. And I think it's not easy, and I don't want to belittle this person's plight. I understand when you feel feelings for somebody. And I'm not just saying there's other fish in the sea. People waiting for you as soon as you make space for it.
Yeah.
I also can't move on if I can still look at them a lot. Like, I mean, this is sort of like a social media phenomenon, but like, if I can still look at their pictures and I haven't blocked them, I'll do it for years.
Yeah.
No,
I'll
Facebook
obsess
knows
for
too.
years.
Facebook knows who my weird exes are because it'll suggest them. I know. I hope that's not weird to say.
No, I don't even know.
Every once in a while, you just want to see what your weird ex is up to. But I do think there's something strange. I try not to jerk off to ex-girlfriends. I try not to look at old photos and jerk off. I try. It's almost like a voodoo thing. I don't want them, and at this point, they really are just like a phantom of who they really are. The real them isn't involved. It's just my fantasy in the brain of the memory of them. And I don't want to give them too much of a, to use a Christian term, a foothold. I don't want to give them a way in to claim land. There's also something DGP has told me. It's like, okay, so you had some crazy girlfriend. Jerk off to her for the rest of your life. There's no harm in that. To that I say, I don't want to give them the satisfaction.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of careful who I allow room at the hotel or
I feel like it's like respecting the sea, kind of, where you're like, this is like, it's not even love. I would say it's not love. It's more of infatuation, which can feel almost more powerful than love. And it's just like understanding. I've only really had one situation where I had like an unrequited love for someone that was all-consuming, and I actually look back on that time very fondly. But I think you're right. There is this opportunity, which I didn't take at the time, and I wish I had, to be like, and this is so, I'm going to speak to the women here, but this is true for everybody.
all the single ladies.
All the single ladies. But to just be like, I choose you. If you don't love me, I'm going to go ahead and choose you and cut you out.
I think that's part of the courage.
Yeah.
Is realizing that whoever this person is isn't the mirror that you need to reflect back goodness.
Right.
And it's like what we said about anomalies, and it's what I've been really kind of on a care about, is there isn't someone that's going to save you. You are already complete. You you already have inside of you the love that you need, every ounce of it, more than you. And this person was an impetus to unlocking that love. It helped you access the place where your love is around us. But it's not.
Oh,
Drink.
Don't confuse the person with that love necessarily, with your access to that love.
And I actually think an unrequited love is something that is, like, that's a situation where it's easier to understand that because you are kind of already doing that. All of the feelings that you have and stuff aren't being reciprocated, so you realize that you're manufacturing those feelings anyway.
Yeah.
So you have that capability
You have it.
with or without that person.
And there is something beautiful about, I think we talked about this on the podcast quite a bit, but that idea of loving yourself and giving yourself the things that you're waiting to have a partner, to have someone to give it to. Give it to yourself. And it's not about being selfish, it's about trying to, it's like you're about to have a party and you're the house and you want to set it up nice and you want to clean it, and you want to unlock the doors and let the light in and let the air in, and then you'll get better again.
Alright, let's do Jake, and this is just a quick one. Jake Albane says, have you ever thought about videotaping the podcast?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, why not? I think we can do that. I think you might be disappointed in how many undershirts I'm wearing. V-necks and otherwise. It's so hot here. I always come here unwashed, flip-flopped, like hair a mess.
Yeah, you look really great right now.
Uneating. Whenever Katie takes a candid of me and like Johnny Ham or something, it's always me just kind of like needing to shave the few parts of my face that grow.
I think I look like my grandmother in every picture I've ever seen of myself.
Really?
Yeah.
That explains why I can't stop jerking it.
I can only see my grandmother in every picture. Are you critical of pictures of yourself?
Oh, well,
I guess everyone is, right?
Oh, absolutely. But
Sure.
I'm most critical, let's go around and say what we're most critical of. I'm most critical of my arm.
Oh, I've never thought that once.
Really sweet. I appreciate that. And I also know that. Like, I know that I'm being crazy. It's all just like, but if my arm is in a bad angle.
Yeah.
So you'll see me in like a lot of awkward positions making my arm look like
You know, it's funny. I appreciate the oversharing, but right now I'm like, I don't even want to say what I'm sensitive about because I don't want to give. It's like giving real estate.
Yeah, I'm thinking it lies. Yeah.
But yeah.
Oh, great. So I'm a left.
All right.
Alright, I have terrible posture.
No, you don't.
I think I do. Good one.
But it also relates, like, my dad, who's not a critical person, wants to, like, stand up straight or whatever.
I have a dad say that.
Yeah, but that's what dad in my head.
Instead of, I'm proud of him. My dad tells me I'm proud of my dad.
You don't have to. You don't have to. I'm happy to
Before
share.
that. Talking about before that.
I can't find your friend.
Okay, sorry, Katie. I'm sure.
I know.
Did it?
Wonderful.
Pick another one.
Yeah, alright,
now we're real loose.
Here, for Katie, we will plug your podcast, Wellness Wonderland. Thank you. Sorry, we couldn't find your question. You're wonderful. Okay, fine. I'm out of here.
Okay.
How are you picking these?
I've been doing random things. But this pick for a while, like this huge paragraph.
Yep.
That's a lot.
That was like 2 pages. I'm so grateful that you took this job because I really think I would be panicking. I should have done it.
Yeah, do that one.
Alright, okay, do it short.
Yeah.
If you type Pete Holmes into YouTube, which are the clips on the first page, would you choose to showcase your style of comedy? That's from Scott Rodolico. Thanks.
Oh, Scotty Roll.
I guess he goes by Scooter.
You know, it's a weird thing. I wonder how you guys feel about this. It's like everything that's in the past is kind of in this other place. So sometimes when I'm getting ready for a show, I will watch old clips of myself. One time Matt McCarthy gave me shit because I didn't go on private on Spotify. I was listening to my own album. That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
When you realize how compartmentalized everything is, when you go, there's comedy Pete, like we were talking about Plainview, and you don't live with comedy Pete. I know we like you live with silly Pete, that's for sure.
Oh,
Love
yeah.
playing guitar, whatever we're doing, being real silly Pete. But you don't live with the constantly contemplative writing, crafting person.
Yeah.
So I try sometimes to remember who that guy is by listening to some of his material. It really does feel like a separate person. I think I may be most proud of the Someone Loves Your Body monologue. I really love, we did this monologue about how no matter what you look like, somebody's into what you got.
It's so true, though.
First of all, it's not phony baloney, let's just say some lies to make people happy. But it was funny. It was something that I was doing in my stand-up, and then I wrote it up, and all the wonderful writers punched it up and added to it. And it really just kind of moved a lot of people, but it was also funny. I really like that. That, to me, is the perfect confluence of some sort of message, meaning nutrition, and also some sugar in there just to be sweet and fun.
Can I also add that when my mom found out that I was dating somebody, she Googled you immediately, and that was luckily the first thing that she ever watched. And she was like, that is amazing.
Yeah.
It's really, and it's true.
Yeah.
Everybody has different body types.
On Grindr, I think of myself as sort of like the Robin Hood of Grindr, because like if someone's like really racist, I'll fuck with them, and if someone's seemingly really insecure, I'll try to like reach out. And there was a person recently.
I love you so much.
There was a guy recently who had a photo that you wouldn't describe as like stereotypically chic, and in a caption said, "I know I'm ugly. I don't blame you anymore." And it crushed my soul. And Chad, I'm gonna
say how often you speak tapping down.
I would just like to alert the people of Washington, D.C. if you were on Grindr.
We're about to look at it.
Well, we'll be in talking about going tomorrow. This is on Friday.
Yeah, that's a good
Sorry. Well, so the people of Washington, D.C. on Grindr, how dare you?
Yeah, I know. Preemptively, fuck all of you. I hate it when you agree. You all for no one. You spend so much time agreeing.
It's so intense. Yeah.
And we're staying at the shit.
I know. And I'm gonna fucking play that up.
So invested in you and rooting for you to be able to have sex. It's so frustrating, even if you're not on it, if you're
So fucking Nate Stevens.
How old is too old to start your career in stand-up? That's a great question. 45. No. We often reference, I think our late bloomers are Tim Allen, Rodney. Those are all nothing. When we started. Wait, this goes back to the idea of realizing that you're not doing what you're supposed to do. Yeah. You realize that the breadcrumbs were on the other path. It's never too late. I don't want to sound like a fucking Hallmark calendar, but like, what is the point? Here's how right. Are you just love enjoying this? Fuck somebody, right? When you go stand up, this thing, the quality of this is you could meet if you like it, you just alright. But I think
with that said, I also think like if you're gonna start doing stand up, what are you looking to do? Looking to become a that's first of all, you're going into the wrong industry. Blinding nose to that.
But I would think that
if you just want to make people laugh, why not?
That's absolutely right. But I also think, talking about courage, I think the courage of nature, or just people in general, tend to honor purity. So when Roseanne told to stand up about being a Midwestern Maroon, where she was from a housewife, and you see and you hear that authenticity, you can't convey. And then next thing you know, you want to go. Again, and then another piece of media saying you're not allowed to. I would rather see your bad jokes than see you do a joke after.
What's the reason they didn't know you were? I feel like this is like a Georgia stand a bit. Was that wrong?
Is that wrong? Serious. Orange. Here it is.
All right, Bailey Crochet says, guys, if you had one superpower, what would it be? Oh, wow. Really? That was you, Bailey.
We were high the other night, like the British people, suddenly having spoken, get excited, like, I can't wait to see.
To reveal that I'm British, yeah. And I pointed out that it's not true for America.
Yeah, I can't wait.
You're rarely to be, like, excited that they're going to see that you're just a dumb American.
You know what I would like? I'm going to go ahead and talk about, just talk about life, just talk about I would like the ability to be optional.
I think that's very that's I got that's very power motivated because that
oh yeah, then I can
motivate and manipulate. And I don't blame you at all.
No, and that's why these questions are valuable. They help us come to some things with the size of ourselves that are socially acceptable. Yeah. When you talk about invisibility, like it's fucking of course you could go in the cold locker room or whatever. Like, I'm not gonna. It's not to assault. You went to murder. I was trying to talk about stupid murder. You know, John Hoffman did this on NPR. He was like, this is invisibility. And they go, invisibility is your master builder. It's the shame one. And light is the power one. And I'm starting to know. Today it's more of light than invisibility.
Please do it.
I would even say, like, yeah. Definitely not a.
You kind of forget.
No, you'll see.
Thank you.
For me, I feel like maybe we can bring it down to light is when I'm like where I'm really choosing fun, and invisibility is when I'm really fearful. So lately, I've been wanting invisibility because I'm so afraid that I'm going to
How dare you?
You mean the cops that murdered?
I mean Greg Allen. I did Gregory Allen.
Oh, you did not.
I did not, but I can see his eyes. I can tell their eyes. Actually, just the way. But yeah, but then like when I'm feeling really free and not in a fearful place, I'm like, of course I'm gonna fly.
It's like funny that every day I have that
This is one where I don't even think this is also like I think invisibility would be considered, and that's what you said. I remember water might be yeah, when you're high, when you're funny with fish.
Light when you're going to get cold.
I think it's you for jacket when you fly. Let's do another one. I just want to know if you want that.
Yeah,
sure.
They're valid swap just because it's like I don't think you have to. I did. It's just a podcast.
I think her list is not You mentioned countless times that your parents are not allowed to listen to the podcast, and they wouldn't even know how to find it if they wanted to listen. During the span of these 300 episodes, congratulations, by the way, have they gotten around to listening to any of the episodes? If so, have you had any interesting conversations with your family, either uncomfortable or rewarding, based on something said during the podcast?
That's a good question, Blake. You know, the real fantasy is that, metaphorically speaking, anyone could listen to our podcast and still love us.
Yes.
And that's really the fantasy for all of us. I think my parents would, and I know they would, without a doubt. They might not like some of it. I kind of have a code with my mom. She'll be like I did at midnight the other night. She was like, "What's that?" I was like, "It's not for moms." You know, and that doesn't mean she's excluded from it. It's just not really intended for her, so it might not be an ideal experience. But you know, the more the podcast, the energy of the podcast, the idea, you guys just swap. I'll be honest here, the podcast and my own personal life merge, the more my parents are seeing podcasts. So the podcast kind of helped me, I know this sounds very humble, but the podcast has helped me be a more realized, actualized, three-dimensional person with them. So the great answer, I'm happy to say, is if they were to listen, they would be less shocked now than they would have been at the beginning. He at the beginning was dabbling in a full honest person, and now they've met and had dinner with that person many times.
Yeah. I love it.
How was the pee-pee? Was it good? It was really good. Sometimes they're too long. You can get a too long one.
I feel like that's always rewarding.
I don't like the too long. I got
You're just expunging yourself of bad stuff, so you're like, oh, this feels good.
Yeah, I get that.
This guy provided, could you hand me my wine?
Yeah, of course.
This guy provided kind of like a speed round of questions.
I'm good. Let's do it.
Okay, I thought you meant like, I'm good without.
Why is Brent so loud in my ear?
Well, that's the thing is like, I can't hear anything in your headphones. We've all switched headphones, and it's gotten confusing.
No, it's okay. You're
oh, there we go. Oh, wow.
Here, just turn yours up loud.
Shit. Turning mine up?
Oh, man.
Check.
That's it.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Speed round. Hit it.
Speed round.
All right.
How do you define gratitude? That doesn't seem like a quick question.
No. Honestly, I think gratitude is a daily practice. It's something you're supposed to intentionally try to have. It's not something that you necessarily organically have. You kind of fake it till you make it. When I'm on a walk alone, I do gratitude lists. I try to remember basic stuff like shoes, healthy joints, or your eyesight, whatever it could be. And I find the more I do it, the more gratitude I have. So that's how I define that.
Beautiful. What does love mean to you?
Love is yes. I really think love is yes. Love is not resisting, and love is saying yes to things. You get tricky when I know you have scenarios where it's like, are you going to love that? You know, things that we're supposed to resist. But for the most part, if you take someone like my parents, and instead of wishing they'd be a certain way or wishing it was right, when we feel unconditionally loved, we feel someone saying yes to who we are, and we feel them. This is the Ramdas quote, okay? About the trees. You don't look at trees and judge them. They're bending a certain way to get the sunlight or to bend a certain way to avoid the wind. But we do with people. You know, this guy grew up in Brooklyn and he's rude. You know what I mean? But when we can say yes to that guy's past in Brooklyn, or we can say yes to his grammatical and profanity choices, that's when I feel something called love. So I think that's a very, very good question. We always talk about a couple things, especially in mystical things, love and the heart. And I really think those things go undefined for a lot of people. I really think the quickest way to define love is to say the same.
And that's actually great because I think I do the opposite. Coming from someone who thinks his heart is too cold for love and will eventually die alone in the ditch, but I do the opposite where I'm always very rigid and then I think I'm too needy and controlling. But I come from a family where my parents were incredibly close, and my brother and his wife were incredibly close. And so in my head, I'm like, oh, if we don't hit it off on the first date, it's useless because it's not meant to be. And I recognize entirely that's flawed logic. But I don't do that enough. I don't say yes. I'm like, oh no.
It causes a lot of suffering.
Yeah.
And I'm the king of that castle. I'll get the Uber, and as down the road, I want them to turn the radio up because I can't hear them listening to the commercials at full volume. And then, so I'm not here to say, you can also say yes to your desire for them to turn the radio up. That's completely appropriate. Yeah. But when you get into, I always go to dreams. Whenever I have a dream and I realize I'm dreaming, and in the dream you can hear someone playing music, it's the farthest thing from your mind to tell them to turn it down. Because you just can't believe there is music. And when we were on mushrooms on Christmas Eve, and all the times that I've taken mushrooms, and all the times that I've just been in a beautiful meditative place, I'm like, I don't want to listen to music because now is playing. And that sort of organic yes, that love for the moment, you're like, that's a bird, and that's that person laughing, and that's even that unpleasant jackhammer. This is the only time that now is being pressed and streamed live and get obsessed, and it's juicy and delicious.
Yeah, you didn't, when we took mushrooms on Christmas Eve, we really felt like we were both, just experiencing what unconditional love is. We were tapped into that source. And it did feel like yes, and it felt like everything was fine. And it just, there weren't any wants. You weren't hungry, you weren't thirsty.
even though we hadn't really eaten or drank.
Yeah, and we would say things like, "Oh, it's so funny, my body needs to go to the bathroom right now." But it's like you're just not.
Yeah.
There isn't. It's the opposite of that thing of like trying to fill a hole that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Or I mean, but that nothing can.
But it was a big, big yes to what was happening.
Yeah. I think that's a beautiful.
And that's it. By the way, if you're ever taking a hallucinogen and having a bad experience, that's a quick way to turn it around.
Mm-hmm.
Is to ask yourself, what was it that you thought needed to be loved? What was it that you thought needed to be said yes to? You see a dragon and it's scary. You just say, you try and love that dragon. I know that sounds absurd, but it's true.
But going back to what you were saying, like in a more romantic setting, it is a tricky balance between, like, I've always had pretty high standards for myself, like of being loved, which I have no idea where they came from. But it is a tricky balance between being like, I'm not going to waste my time on anything less than exceptional.
Right.
And also being like, but some people take a while to blossom, and you need to say yes to them until you know for sure.
Right.
It's hard. And the more you experience, the better you are at saying yes. When they remind you where I think you get this sage-old person that is kind of more patient.
It's also tough in a big city because there's always someone else. And so I do this a lot where, like, you could... I remember in college, you start a class, and at the beginning of the semester, you're like, oh, God, no one is cute in the classes. And then by the end of the semester, you're in love with, like, a dozen of these people because you notice little things, you listen to the questions that they ask, you noticed, he has a ring at the beginning of the semester and not at the end. But you also, in a city like LA or New York or maybe anywhere really, has the opportunity to give 6 to 12 dates to someone that they're on the fence about.
Yeah.
And that's what kills me, because you're like, you go on a couple dates, you're like, oh, this guy's fine, but I'm on the fence. Maybe he's on the fence about me, and you're like, well, in an ideal world, we would just continue getting beers or hanging out or going to museums, as if I've ever done that. And then we'll see where it goes. Maybe we'll fall in love, but I haven't done that. You stop at around 2 or 3 if you don't feel like it's going the right way.
Yeah, and the tricky thing about dating too is that you're really seeing somebody almost at their worst because it's such an awkward situation. And I'm such a talent whore that I'm almost not attracted to somebody unless I'm seeing them do something kind of impressive.
Unless they're dancing for you, unless
they're Beyonce.
I love you, Jay.
But there is something beautiful, like you're really vulnerable together because you're in this just very awkward situation.
I'm becoming paranoid we won't get to enough other people's questions too. So let's burn through these. And I think the fun of the episode might be people hearing their questions. So let's do a speed round. Sure. We only have 15 minutes left, and we're going to do 2 hours, and who knows?
Okay. All right. Quick. What is happiness?
I think happiness is being your authentic self, living truthfully, finding your purpose, finding a place that's receptive to that purpose.
Okay.
That was a great answer.
That was really
very good. It was brought to you by Tom Merlot.
What is the most important question you can ask yourself?
Who am I?
Beautiful. How do you find meaning in your life? What is meaningful?
What is meaning? No, I don't like that
Is it the same guy, or is it
this is
all
the
philosophical?
Same,
Oh, okay.
This is all the same person.
one. My answer to that one is I don't think that one.
Okay. How do you
I think it's all precious.
Yeah. What was one of the hardest times you really ask a good question?
Yeah, what? You have to go out there. Feeling fine. I don't know. Why don't we do this every day?
Literally last night he said, "Why is this illegal?"
That was too late. Okay, I didn't come down with that. But yeah.
Why is this illegal?
Everything's so funny. Hard.
Have you watched Fail, which is just a perfect stoner?
Rich love. That's my big thing now is just going and using that. Learn watching it. You guys
Well, that's the thing. I feel like you two catch each other here. watch, and we go through a lot of things and we don't find it, YouTube is the perfect thing to watch, because watching people like watch like an hour of family.
That's my Paul Redthread down there.
That's pretty good.
I want to watch it more like
Anyway, let's go to family.
Sorry, did I interrupt with my alrighty opinion?
No, it was pretty
Alright, let's move on from this guy. You gotta know.
Okay, that was Juho Rana. Yeah, he was on the answer.
That was in Texas.
I'm thinking of her name is Maddie in the stage, and don't give me this picture. Subject is shit. Am I too late? And it starts out with Valerie, and that's pretty true. Maddie, okay. Oh, that's good. I'm sure I thought I was a figure which is fun of that. Thank you. The idea of you saying things to each other like I see you pops up in my brain a few times a week. So lucky. I'd love to get really real. Are you two always been conscious and supportive? Or is it so sometimes exhausting and you just without considering the effect of your words/actions?
I got lost.
It's not always a surprising effort.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. I don't say 'cause that's not most of what you know the most of it.
Yeah, I feel like almost all of it. Yeah, it's like,
I know the
all of it. Hey, I see you.
it's funny, there's being the teaching and then there's hearing the teaching. Sometimes I think we're just awesome. That's what we do. It's great. And now here's something talking about us. That's exciting.
My question is not nearly as deep as that stuff that they went into. I sometimes struggle to find ways to keep vegan food interesting. It always ends up being kind of boring, and though it's typically good, it's not that inspiring. And I feel like my customers, I think he's a chef, or her, I feel like my customers aren't being totally satisfied. Is there something that you and Val are missing from your vegan/vegetarian diets that you wish was more readily available? This is a funny question I'm laughing because I've been eating so much vegan food.
Yeah, you know what I think is interesting is I saw a documentary where there's a chef, I forget his name, well respected, and he was saying that if you put a piece of steak in your mouth, you really do enjoy the juice and the flavor and the marinade and all that sort of stuff. It's going to dry out pretty quickly, even if it's an excellent steak. Like if you get the perfect pineapple and you put that in your mouth, I'm talking about the perfect milk every flavor section of that pineapple is a joyful experience. So when I see vegan seeds go wrong, it's oftentimes when it's trying too hard. When I try and encourage other people to go vegan, I try and remind them once a week how delicious watermelons will be. watermelon is an amazing food. It's simple food. And once you realize you don't have to be in a cookout, you can buy it in the store and eat it while you're watching TV. You are gradually 50% closer to being a vegan. So I'm not going to tell anybody to be like tofu or motherfucking bacon chicken and shit. I'm talking about eating meals you have a relationship with. I just want to make it, you know. Yeah. I don't know about for other people, making there's an exciting pulse and vitality to it that I think can be exploited to make it more exciting about.
Well, I was going to say, as a vegan, as a burger myself, dare I've always felt like if you can mimic the texture, you're good.
Yeah.
And that's why I prefer seitan, because I think seitan, when I am eating vegan or vegetarian, seitan is the closest it can be manipulated to be closest.
Yeah, I agree.
And if you can get that, I mean, what they do, that's why tapas is so popular. Like after a few bites anyway, we start losing. We're not actually paying attention to what we're eating anymore.
You're just consuming.
You're just consuming. And your brain is telling you, oh, I'm consuming the same thing. I'm consuming the same Chipotle burrito as I was 10 minutes ago. No.
Yeah.
But you're not actually experiencing it like you were when you first took that initial bite.
Sorry? Are you done?
Yeah.
I didn't want to interrupt you.
No.
But it's this idea of we don't have to play by the rules. There are no rules. Meaning, what's exciting to me about raw food and like superfood stuff is saying, look, there's more players in this chess game that they didn't give to you. So instead of trying to keep up with the standard American diet and being like, we have an amazing veggie burger, sorry there's no protein, we can say, have these motherfucking gojis, have some fucking hemp seed protein, have like a shake that'll make your dick hard. You know what I mean? Like this insane, have some motherfucking lentil soup that will reinvent what you think about iron.
By the way, Progresso lentil soup,
Oh my God.
greatest
It's one of your
in
favorite soups.
the world.
But we're
with
not-
vinegar in it.
But vegans aren't behind. I think what would help a lot of chefs is to realize we're ahead. We're the ones dealing with like real, actual, vibrant, living food, especially raw food. So instead of playing keep up, I think a lot of vegan chefs would do well to claim their rightful place at the front. That's a great thing to be doing.
Well, if you don't mind me, oh, sorry, Val, go.
Even if you are a meat eater, it wasn't intended to be 3 meals a motherfucking day. Sure.
Yeah.
I understand it was still supposed to be plant-based most of the time. You might kill a fucking coyote and eat its face. I got no goddamn problem. I'm getting served.
Yeah, I know, you're getting fiery.
Well, certainly. I was just going to say a very simple answer, which is I think that cashew milk, even though it's high in fat, cashews are the dairy replacer. For somebody who is obsessed with dairy and tries not to eat it, cashew cheese, cashew and milkshakes, like, don't banana me.
Yeah.
Do not banana me.
Get that frozen banana and shove it up your ice cold
Because if
butt.
banana comes to the party, banana dominates, and that's the only thing you
Nobody
taste.
wants banana. Get out of the fiesta.
This is what I was going to say. Was that in all of my vegan experimentations, I feel like a lot of times, because vegans and vegetarians are so healthy, there's a sense that if you're making vegan and vegetarian food, you also have to be low salt and this and no GMOs, gluten free, all these things, and then you're watering. It's like, and we were saying this, and there's a place we order from occasionally, and I'm forgetting the name of it, but like, if you could give me vegan fast food, I'd love the fuck out of it, because like I want some. I'm sure some vegans still want garbage sometimes too.
Well, that's for sure.
You know, delicious garbage food, and not everything has to be the most healthy, holistic thing.
Sage is what you're talking about. Sage makes a great buffalo cauliflower. And they make a great nacho. They make a great spinach artichoke dip.
And honestly, I prefer that spinach, no.
Their ranch.
Yeah, you prefer
I
the
got
cauliflower.
I prefer
We're
the
all drunk.
buffalo cauliflower over buffalo
Let's
baby
answer
buffalo.
more questions because we're drunk and we're open.
Okay, do you truly enjoy the weirdest moments of your podcast, the ones that could make any audience groan? Do you find comedic value? from Cynthia Kennedy.
You know, I really like authenticity wherever it can be found. We're all wearing these suits of armor, we're all wearing these personalities, we're all wearing these perspectives. And if you can get into something where someone is shifted a little to the left or the right, that feels exciting to me. So, no matter what it is, I think we're all kind of drawn to something authenticious, to quote the town. We're doing a speed run. Make sure you say their name.
I did say her name, Cynthia.
No, I wasn't correcting you.
Oh, no, I know.
So we can get the most people.
I just am trying to find Trayson-Bird.
If their name is Trayson-Bird,
Would you ever do an episode where you and the guests take mushrooms? Okay.
I have a deep respect for mushrooms, and I think when people talk about, you know, Trayson, I don't mean to be dismissive. I've thought about it. It just wouldn't make sense, and that's the beauty of mushrooms. When you take mushrooms, this reality doesn't make much sense, and that one makes all the sense. And you're like, look at them over there thinking they're important, and we're over here. So I don't want to sit around and kind of do a disservice to this magical medicine, and by being like, oh, look at your face. Like, what's that going to help anybody?
Right.
I think taking mushrooms at a party is stupid. I think taking them at a festival can be fine, but I really think the best way to do it is set and setting, and to do some quiet work, do some yoga, do some fasting, do some meditation. Take them with a loved one, someone you're comfortable throwing up with, someone you're comfortable being vulnerable and crying with. None of that happened when we did them. And then you'll really have an opportunity to... see the divine.
Brett, have you taken mushrooms?
I did once.
You haven't talked about
it was kind of a shitty experience. It just didn't really work. It didn't work, and then I did like another dose, and then I just thought I was going to die. So, no surprises there.
No surprises. You don't have to answer this one, but it made me laugh. So it says, I would love to hear Pete's Native American voice explaining that he's not from India. Which I think your Native American voice is your impression of the guy from the Source family.
Yeah, I know my Native American voice, but I'm not from India.
Yeah, like you're not that kind of Indian.
Oh, I get that quite a bit actually, that people see that I'm Indian, and they're quite disappointed when I show up and show the native to these. So, I can see some disappointment in your face, I can see there's yoga mats, and you thought maybe I would take it on that path. But oftentimes in this racist kind of cadence, I take people to another journey. Something with peyote, and they've got fucking with their Coors Light. I thought we could have some fun.
That's really wonderful.
We're living in the heyday where that kind of voice will only be acceptable for another 5-6 years.
6 months even.
I would argue it's not acceptable now.
No, I know. But it's silly.
So this is from Anna Greer. What are your spirit animals?
I don't really respond to spirit animals. I got Ram Dass up there for sure.
Ram Dass is your spirit. Beyonce's my spirit animal.
You said Ram Dass.
Oh, yeah. I gotta get that to the wheel.
Mm-hmm. Okay, this is another question from her. If you had to become an animal, but keep your brain and human voice and continue to exist in the human world, what animal would you choose?
Cat. Because you can put a little tuxedo on a cat. I can go and comb it and be like, can you believe this? I'm a cat. I'm very clean. People want to hold me.
Yeah, that's a good one. I would say dog.
Maybe you have less dignity as a dog.
No, you have less dignity in your eyes. I think dogs are a million.